New Zealand Prime Minister Christopher Luxon took a commercial flight to Japan after his first plane broke down while refueling in Papua New Guinea. I don't think you understand this very well. Now, let me make it clearer. Now, we are talking about New Zealand with a GDP per capita of $52,000 with a gross domestic GDP of $248 billion. Now, the Prime Minister is taking a commercial plane. Without indication, New Zealand has a stable and a better economy than Nigeria. Their annual inflation rate is 7.2% against Nigeria's inflation rate of 33.95%. New Zealand interest rate is pegged at 5.5%, while Nigeria interest rate is 24.5%. With all of this, they should be spending lavishly to buy new presidential jet because they have the money. But let's take a look at Nigeria with a debt profile of 97.34 trillion naira. Nigeria has an embarrassing GDP per capita of $1,087 with a population of over 200 million persons. Now, rather than managing their resources, rather than living within their means and budget, Nigerian National Assembly is approving the purchase of 2 presidential private jets for the president and the vice president. Now, this is the same government that is complaining of inheriting a battered economy. But their spending does not justify that they inherited a battered economy. Since assuming office 1 year ago, it is reported that Tinubu and his vice president Kashi Shettima have spent 8.64 billion naira in 3 months for travel expenses. The same Tinubu approved 90 billion to subsidize Hajj, a fertile religious exercise that does not in any way add anything to the economy. 15 trillion was budgeted for the construction of Lagos Calabar Road, while we have abandoned and dilapidated roads scattered all over the country. The action of Tinubu is one that is not serious for governance. No roadmap, no vision, no destination, just trial and error. Tinubu and other successive governments, they've shown that we don't have a revenue problem. Our problem is a spending problem. We need a shrewd manager. We need someone that is frugal with spending, someone that can manage our resources very well. And from all indication, Tinubu is not that person. Borrowing is not a bad thing, the same way spending is not a bad thing. But whatever you borrow or spend should be a fruitful spending that will boost the economy. Just like Peter Obi captured it, you cannot claim to inherit a battered economy while living an extravagant lifestyle. Let's take a listen to Mr. Peter Obi.
Charles, the first thing you do as a leader who inherited a difficult situation is to lead by example, and it starts by your own style, by your behavior, your conduct, how you manage the resources. You cannot say that things are difficult when you're living in conspicuous consumption. The things you don't do. Nigeria today is a country with the highest amount of people without homes. Over 24 million. Yet, you're spending 20-something billion to build a house for one person. Mr. Johnson, are you saying that a vice president of Nigeria cannot live in a 4-bedroom house? You live in the UK. 10 Downing Street is 3 rooms. That is an economy that is almost 10 times our economy today. And the Prime Minister lives in 3 rooms. So that's where you start. You start by living like somebody who is coming through difficulty, who is facing difficulty, who wants to change things. That's how we do it. You don't engage in what we've been doing, buying vehicles, partying and everything as if things are normal. When you say there's difficulty, you need to deal with the issue of cutting the cost of governance. That's where you start. So you need to deal with the issue of massive corruption. That is showing that I am now, okay, things are bad. Just have served the system. where I came in and found that things are bad. And we start by cutting the cost of governance.
So is that what you'd like to see him I mean, the first year is gone, that's a fact, but he's now entering his second year. He has entered. What are the things that
you have to also show a clear plan. It is not enough to say, oh, we're going to go through problem. If we're going to go through problem, chances is very simple. You enter a plane. There's a bad weather. There's going to be a turbulence. The pilot says, we're going to go through bad weather. It's going to take us maybe 1 hour, 2 hours because of this. And he follows it through. That is not the time. In that bad weather, everybody, even the crew, are asked to sit down. That's not time to start serving food and wine and everything when everything is up and down. That's why we're there. We're in turbulence and people are still dancing and everything. I always say what happened to the Titanic is what is happening in Nigeria. While the plane was going under, people on the upper deck were busy dancing until the whole thing collapsed. That's what is happening now. We should change and do things rightly. We can change and manage corruption and everything and all that. I would say that President Tinubu have kept to his campaign promises. Throughout the campaign, he consistently maintained that he will continue from where Buhari stopped. And that is done very well. I would say excellent. I'll give him excellent pass mark. And it's very simple. Dollar was 460, it's now 1,005. Fuel was 238, it's now about 700. Diesel was 844, it's now 1,415. A bag of rice is 35,000, is now about 80. A bag of beans was similar, 35, is now about 90. Gari was 27.28, is now 49.50. A tuber of yam was about 2,007 to 3,000, now is about 10,000. Tomato basket is about 40,000, that is over 150,000. Electricity is 66 kilowatts, is now over 200. You can go on and on. Our debts, even bread, which is a basic thing other countries are subsidized, like Egypt. Bread, smaller, medium bread was 450 naira. It's not 900 naira. The big one is 900, it's 1,005. Our debt, like I mentioned, was 87. By end of last year, it was actually 97. The highest we've done within that short period. Now is over 100 trillion. In fact, this year alone, the government, through the Central Bank of Nigeria, have issued and taken from the system borrowing of over 16 trillion naira. You can imagine the interest at almost 20%. It's about 3.2 trillion after 12 months. At that, last year, in a period of 9 months, we spent about 5.7 trillion servicing as debt interest on our payment. So add that. So overall, you've done well. Let's even go back to the overall of the economy. By the time he took over last year, we were still the biggest economy in Africa with $477 billion as our GDP, followed by South Africa, Egypt, Algeria, and Morocco. Today, we are number 4. South Africa is number 1 now. I think about $373 billion. Egypt is second, $347 billion. followed by Algeria 266, and we are now 252 billion GDP economy. It's even worse when you go to our per capita. We are actually 1/4 of per capita of the list of these nations that I mentioned. South Africa is over 6,000 per capita. Egypt is 4,000 plus. So is Algeria. And then Morocco, which is 1,210, and we are 1,000 plus. So we actually gone low. We're coming from a low of per capita of 3,000 plus in 2014. So with every other thing have headed south. Adherence to the rule of law has worsened. The country has been nepotism is at the highest.
Let's look at one.